Welcome, Jaime White here, Daily Pulse, where woke goes to cry. Today, I would like to talk about racism. We all know the past we've had with racism. It's heinous. The violence committed because of a man's skin color. Well, we can give you a little history today and this is my opinion, on what racism is. I'd like to start back in 1828. That was when the Democratic Party was officially a party. So they are the oldest party in this country. In 1854, the Republican Party came into existence. But I'd like to talk about the key date, or the key year of 1865. You know, we have Joe Biden running for president. Again. We all know he's got problems. He's absolutely got dementia. I mean, there's really no doubt about that. But I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about his racist history. Yes, Joe Biden has a racist history. As a matter of fact, the federal government right now is a racist entity. We're going to talk about how racism has evolved over the years. We're going to start on December 6th, 1865. That is when our country ratified the 13th Amendment to abolish slavery once and for all. I mean, why it took that long, who the hell knows? That is a sick part of our history. Then there's Christmas Eve of 1865. That particular day, that particular Christmas, think about it. That's a very religious holiday. I'm Catholic. On Christmas Eve, 1865, the Ku Klux Klan came into existence. 18 days. It only took them 18 days after slavery had been officially abolished. Ku Klux Klan was founded by Democrats. Now, USA Today did an article back in 2020 saying that it was a different Democrat. Was not the Democrats. It was Democrats were Republicans, Republicans were Democrats. No. No and no. The Democrats that created the Ku Klux Klan, that is the party of the Ku Klux Klan, putting sheets over their head. I mean, the only sheet I grew up with over my head was Casper, the Friendly Ghost. Actually a cool cartoon. I love that cartoon. But, I mean, how sick do you have to be? You cover yourself with a sheet? I mean, you can't even stand up for your own beliefs. You got to hide? Why do you have to hide? Okay, in the early 1940s, Robert Byrd founded a West Virginia chapter of the KKK. He led that chapter. Democrat. In 1947, Robert Byrd ran for office without a diploma or anything. He ran for the Senate, of all things, and he won. And he was a senator, and he still is considered the longest running senator in the history of our government for 51 years. Because Robert Byrd believed that the KKK needed to infiltrate our government. He didn't like what was going on. So he needed to get into the government. And other people ran for offices too. Some won, some lost. Of course, nobody knew he was a part of the KKK at the time, because as a typical racist, back then, they hide. You got to put a sheet on you and hide. Don't know who I am. Ooh. So he becomes senator in 1947. He is now in our government. You go to your Senators Today page on the government website and put in Robert C. Byrd. And look what you see comes up. His biography. Fascinating biography. Man was an intelligent man, no doubt. Not one mention of him running a chapter of the KKK. One of the most heinous organizations of our time. One of those violent organizations of our time. The KKK was formed in 1865 to go after white Republicans, and believe it or not, black Republicans, who wanted to make sure slavery stayed abolished. Democrats wanted slavery. But if you believed in anything else, if you disagreed with their belief system, they would sick the KKK on you. Think about that. Does that sound familiar today? We'll get more into that later on. So now, he's a senator. And in the 60s, he runs into a person, families, wealthy families, what have you. They tend to stick together. They may not even live in the same state. Somehow everyone knows each other. And he runs into a young Joseph Biden. And those two quickly become friends. Good friends. So we know about, Joseph Biden saying that he walked on Selma, or he got arrested with Nelson Mandela. Of course, there's never any actual proof that any of this happened. He says it happened, but apparently this guy says a lot of things. Just in the last month alone, his son died in Iraq, died of cancer, then died in Iraq again, then died of cancer, and now he's died in Iraq again. How do you mess that up? Your son. So he says a lot of things. Although my favorite is Corn Pop. He beat up Corn Pop! Come on, Corn Pop! I don't even know who the hell this guy is, but he beat him up. Jesus. Anyway.
Not popcorn, Corn Pop.
No, I love popcorn. Now I think of Corn Pop, I think of the cereal.
Oh.
Remember those yellow cereals,
Yeah.
Corn Pops? Awesome. No good for you. But
They're good.
They're good.
We
Usually
used-
things
we
that
used to
aren't
be
good
able to-
for you
yeah, we
are
used
delicious.
to be able to eat anything, Back in the day, it was like
But-
anything goes.
So anyway, he meets Joe Biden. They become friends. And not too many years later, now remember this was the 60s, so you got the 70s and 80s. Joe Biden, likes to give speeches. And one speech he gave was on how he didn't want his children to grow up in a racial jungle. Many of you have heard that. It is true. Think about that. So he's friends with Robert Byrd. And then he's giving speeches years later on his kids not growing up in a racial jungle. He authors bills or co-authors bills that puts blacks in jail. Minor drug offenses for life. So I don't get why blacks today are so eager to vote for this guy. He said a number of years ago, talking about the Republicans. Now, he's talking about Republicans to a black group because he knows how to play to the black people, to a whole bunch of African Americans. Republicans, y'all going to be put back in chains. Think about that. Well, what about the last election? What about the last election that he won? When he said, and this thing, I don't know why people didn't really jump on this, okay? He said, and I quote, "If you don't vote for me, you're not black." Are you kidding me? Well, I didn't vote for him. I'm not black, but what if I identify as black?
Yeah.
Can I do that today?
You could.
I mean, little kids are identifying as cats and stuff. And if you talk against that, the other kids, they're being threatened to be thrown out of school. It's crazy. That's in the UK, by the way. But, so yeah, if you don't vote for Joe Biden, you're not black. That's how little he thinks of blacks. But why wouldn't he think like that? Look where his friends come from. Now, on June 28th of this year, Robert C. Byrd will be dead 13 years. In July, it'll be 13 years since Joe Biden gave the eulogy at Byrd's funeral. Now, I think there's some things you need to know about Joe Biden that he said about Robert Byrd. Robert Byrd, in Joe Biden's words, said Robert Byrd was a great man. He was a great human being. He was my mentor. My mentor. Anybody out there got a mentor? I mean, seriously. A mentor is someone who shows you everything you need to know. Everything you need to know. So Robert Byrd showed Joe Biden everything that Joe Biden needed to know. A man who opened up a chapter of the KKK in West Virginia in the 1940s. A man who later on, okay, get this, later on, he became an exalted cyclops of the Ku Klux Klan. What is that, a Sinbad movie? I love those Sinbad movies in the 70s. They were awesome.
Yeah.
But seriously, an exalted cyclops? You know, Cyclops got one eye and everything. Really? And this is your mentor? This is the guy who taught you everything. And now you are the President of the United States. And as the President of the United States, you're supposed to be the president for everyone. And you see his racism come out from time to time in his speeches. You see a lot of things come out from time to time in his speeches. I mean, did you hear about God Save the Queen man?
No.
He's giving a speech on guns, weapons, whatever. And at the end of it, God Save the Queen man.
What is that?
Who the hell knows?
I don't understand half the things the man says.
Who the knows? They tried to say that, even the Democrats were like, what the fuck?
I missed that.
Oh my God. And they even came out and said, well, we don't know why he said that. Then later on, they cleaned it up. Because you notice that the White House always has to clean up everything that Joe Biden does. And before he says that, I better stop because I'm going to get in trouble. Joe Biden says, I better stop because I'm going to get in trouble. God save the Queen, man. I mean, who are you? You're the president. You can do whatever the hell you want. Who are you getting in trouble with?
It's true.
You're the boss.
Maybe.
If you're not the boss of your own party,
Maybe he's in trouble with the Queen man.
the Queen. Well, you know what?
Queen man.
Queen man. Oh, Queen man.
There you go.
Oh, it's a new identification.
Yeah.
It's a new gender.
It's not like what my mom used to call it.
The shims?
The shims.
I love that phrase.
Okay, yeah.
Shims.
My mom used to say shims.
Shims is, her mom used to say shims. She, him, shim. I like that. Because, I mean.
But Queen man could work.
Right, a Queen man. You know, she's dead.
Yeah.
Okay. And, you know, he gave a eulogy one time for this lady's person or whatever, Jackie, whatever. And I guess a bill got passed. This was, I guess, a year ago, 2 years ago? I don't know. And so the lady had passed. And he gets up there, and she had co-authored this bill. And he was very proud about this bill passing, whatever the hell it was. And he's like, Jackie, where are you? Come on up on stage, Jackie, where are you?
What?
He gave the eulogy at a funeral. So, I mean, you know, everyone laughs at this, but it's not funny. He is the president of the greatest country in the world. China right now is looking at Joe Biden with such disdain. They think he's a joke. They don't take him seriously. But we'll get on with that another time. So this is a man whose mentor was an exalted cyclops. Cyclopean. I mean, what an effing idiot. Seriously. This is the guy in the administration who's running our country. You notice with Democrats today, they, every time, don't like what you say, they call you a racist. They call you a bigot. Okay? Look at the second George W. Bush. Really started like there. They called him Hitler. I mean, people protested, and there were Hitler signs, and he's Hitler, right? And then there was Donald Trump. Well, he's Hitler. He's the next Hitler. Every time a Republican runs, you know, they said Romney was a Hitler. He was an idiot. He was a moron. Hitler, not in his description. So they just, every time. But here's the funny thing. So DeSantis now, are you ready for this? Now they're calling DeSantis worse than Hitler.
He's one step up.
He's one step up. He's an exalted Hitler. Or a cyclop Hitler, I don't know. When does the American people start realizing what the Democratic Party is all about? When they can't argue with you, they call you names. They threaten you. Well, that's got to stop. So what? They call you a racist. Big deal. I'm pretty sure I got a few people going to be calling me a racist on doing this show. I don't care. You don't like it, you don't have to watch. Yeah, I just said that. If you want to watch, enjoy. I hope you start, foaming at the mouth. This is what so racism has now evolved. It's still racism, okay? But now it's more of controlism. They wanted to control you back in the 1800s, your thought beliefs, okay? So they formed a group. Country was very young then, and it's evolved throughout the years. So now we're in 2023. You see, this all started, this didn't happen overnight. It didn't. This actually started in the 90s with the Clintons. Now, hold your hats, everybody. I voted for Bill Clinton in the first election. I thought he was a good guy. You know, he got a little something, didn't he? Well, he did help the dry cleaners of America. The secret to getting out that stain. But they learned in the 90s, you could say stuff. It's not true. But you could say stuff. And if you say it over and over again, it becomes a truth. You know how a lie, if you say it long enough, becomes the truth? So they learned in the 90s, we got to start putting this out there. The internet, it was a very early time in the internet accessibility for America. I mean, I think I got my first cell phone or flip phone in 95 maybe. So I had no idea about the internet. Then the 2000s came and the internet exploded. The internet exploded. So Democrats started realizing if you say something, it'll go onto the internet and it will always be there. Always. Doesn't have to be true. If it's not true, even better. Because they figure this, when the election time comes, and people who really do care about the election and want to do their research on parties, they're going to go to the internet. And they're going to see Mitt Romney is a racist. They're going to see Donald Trump is Hitler. Donald Trump did this. George W. Bush did this. I mean, they know it's not true, but they do it anyway because people are going to see it. It will last there forever. So till the end of time. And you got to hand the Democrats credit on that. They came up with a strategy as immoral as it is and as unethical as it is a brilliant strategy. See, they'll do anything to keep their power. They'll say anything to keep their power. Can you imagine if Joe Biden gunned down 20 people in Times Square? The media, well, they were homeless people, and he did them a favor. And Joe Biden's just quirky. You know, it's Grandpa Joe. They would do something like that. Democrats can do no wrong. So now they got to control you. Do you remember in the 90s, during Obama's White House, the IRS going after Republican nonprofits? Think about that. You see the evolution from the 90s all the way to Barack Obama's presidency. Okay? They went after Republicans. And then we find out later that year that the federal government is listening on our phone calls. Average American and their phone calls. Of course, they deny it. Clapper comes out. Oh, no, we wouldn't do that. They always deny it. Always deny it. And then, of course, they admit it. So they did that in Obama's White House. Now we find out, just a few days ago, the federal government is collecting information on every American in the country. They've hired, this isn't old news, they hired 87,000 IRS agents to come after Americans. They claim it's just going to be the upper 1%. Do you need 87,000 IRS agents for the upper 1%?
No.
I mean, apparently, they don't put people in jail anymore for it because look at Hunter Biden. He didn't tell the IRS about 1.6 mil, and yet, so he had to make like 10 mil. Of course, that's in the same time period that a whistleblower says that Hunter Biden and Joe Biden got $5 million apiece. You know, the audio tapes we haven't heard yet. you know, Democrats love whistleblowers unless it's against their own. IRS agents. And did you know the IRS agents are stockpiling weapons and ammo? They've spent over $20 million on weapons and ammo. What the fuck do they need weapons and ammo for? I was audited. Okay? And this was during the Trump, this was during the first, I guess, oh no, it was the second election for Trump. See, I had a sign outside my house. It was a vote for Trump sign. I'm at work one day when I get a phone call. And my wife says, there's somebody beating on the door. I said, well, why call the cops? Oh no, they just left. They just left. They were yelling and screaming something about Trump. And they stole our Trump sign. Came onto my property. Ironically, 3 weeks later, I got audited. Now, I grew up, my father was a good man, but he also gave me one very good piece of advice. You don't mess with the IRS. So we got audited in October, and about 4 months later, you know, we have our tax attorney. Actually, it was, we did the TurboTax, and kudos to TurboTax, little free press here. We had paid for the hired protection, so we had a lady that was going to handle everything, go to court for us and everything. And about 4 months later, we wake up, and I'm going to work one day. When you're audited, your whole life is turned upside down because you're afraid to go to jail. Unless you're Hunter Biden, then you don't go to jail. You don't pay taxes on $1.6 million, and you don't have to say where the money came from, but you know, you don't go to jail. Someone like me, my wife, we worry about going to jail. You know, I grew up, don't mess with the IRS. So about 4 months later, wake up one morning, and I go to work, and I get home, and my wife sits me down. She said, I didn't want to tell you, but I got an email from the IRS. And I didn't want to look at it until after you went to work. You know, I got to remember, I had some health conditions here. And she said, the audit's over. And I said, excuse me? She said, yeah, our 2018 records are fine. They've been satisfied, and we don't owe anything. So I believe this all started with that pounding on the door because I had a Trump sign in my yard. It was the first time in my life I ever put up a sign for any president. For any president. So, character is important. Now, we got 87,000 IRA. Actually, McCarthy was able to knock off 2% in this last deal they did to save the government from not going under and not paying their bills. Ooh, a whole 2%. Thank you, McCarthy. And they're coming, like I said, they're coming after us. You, me, the little people of this world, of this country, they're coming after us. And this is what I'm talking about. Racism now has evolved, okay, to controlism. They need to control your thoughts. They need to control your beliefs. If they don't like your beliefs, look at it this way. They're going after Donald Trump. They're going to get him. And Donald Trump always said, they're going after me to get to you. he's right. Because if they can get Donald Trump, they can get me. I'm easy pickings for them. And they can get you. So we have a president in the White House right now. And if you don't think any of this stuff is related, you know, Robert Byrd and all the things, racist things Joe Biden has said, and I just gave you a couple of them. Think about this. Joe and Jill Biden will not recognize their granddaughter, Navy. Hunter Biden has never seen his child. Let me ask you something, voice from beyond. Do you have a grandchild?
I have 3.
Do you recognize them?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Because they're part of me.
There you go. There you go. So Joe and Jill Biden won't even recognize their granddaughter. Why? Because the woman does not fit along their narrative of who should be fathering, who should be having children with their son. So, because she was a stripper. Strippers is a way for them to make money. It's just another occupation in this society. And women have a right to strip if men are going to be foolish enough to throw money down their G-strings or wherever.
That's true.
I mean, good for them. Hunter will not acknowledge his own daughter. This is your presidential family, people. They spit on their own grandchild. She does not exist. I mean, she had to fight just to keep the last name of Biden. And now Hunter wins on the same day that he gets a sweetheart deal from the DOJ, 75% off his child support payments. Really? Guess that judge was paid off. So I know I said this show was going to be about telling you who's going to be running for president. But I had to do this. So I guarantee you the next show will be about that. And only that. So everyone listen. Think about what I've said today. Think about the character of your president. Think about the administration. Think about the attacks they make on people the minute you disagree with them. And this goes right down to the media, who are absolutely propagandists for this administration. And that's going to be a whole show in itself soon. The media, the liberal media, MSNBC, CNN, those are the two I want to talk about. I can't believe these people. Anyway, this is a show where woke goes to crime.